Me Anything About Politics. This is the show where you can ask anything that you like about politics, and I will do my best to give you a great answer. I know politics can be really intimidating when you're first trying to learn about it. I know it can feel like trying to learn a new language. So, this is the show where you can ask all your questions about politics. Nobody's going to make fun of you or judge you or roast you or anything like that. It is just good faith answers to all of your good faith questions. So throw your questions in the chat. My name is Jarrett Berenstein. I'm here to answer your questions about politics. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. Jack, opinions on neo-libertarian flangelism? I have none. I am confident that it's a trolley question. All right, welcome everybody. Spyrus, thank you for being here. Baby's doing great, cuter and cuter every day. Love watching her grow and turning in more and more into a person every single day. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Jarrett Berenstein. I'm here to answer your questions about politics. Everybody is welcome here. Hold on a second. Jude says Australian painter. I think you probably mean Austrian painter. But yeah, not down with him, if that's what you mean. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jared. I'm here to answer your questions about politics. Jack says, thoughts on socialism. If we're talking about things like universal health care, then I'm down with it. Fletch lives again. Great to see you again. How do you think T is doing mentally? Is he getting worse? Oh yeah, he's definitely getting worse day by day. It's a tough sell because of how old and decrepit Biden looked to try to make a case that Trump is like as bad or worse, but he's definitely like losing it. He was sundowning in his first term. All right, welcome everybody. My name is Jarrett Berenstein. Welcome to the live stream. I'm here to answer all of your questions about politics. Thank you, Jack P. Thank you. You have a good day as well. Everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, something in the middle, or something on the outskirts. OFN says, do you know UK politics? Not very well. I only know never vote Tory, never vote Reform, never vote Restore. Jude says, do you like his art? No, I do not like his art. And if you keep on asking me about the Austrian painter, I'm going to block you. Nihil says, why do liberals attack the left when they need allies against the far right? So that's a really good question, Nihil. And I think that there's a bunch of different reasons why somebody might do that. First, let me put out there that I think that some of the infighting that happens within the left is inorganic. I think that people like to go after each other on the internet for a bunch of different reasons. Some of those aren't real people. Some of those are bots who are being paid to get into fights with people. Some of those are, what's the other word? Some of those are people just trying to get more hype and more views in the algorithm, so they get into fights with people. But why do like the mainstream left do it? I think that some of them are just worried about keeping their own jobs, and they figure that if they get voted out because of some, progressive, then they'll be out of a job and they won't have the power that they had before. I think that it's clear why progressives sometimes will take shots at the center left because, if you're against what the Republicans are doing, you're going to be against somebody who's doing a little bit less of what the Republicans are doing. Okay, Mikhail Meme, what is up? What would you do if Trump was twerking against you? Move away, far away. All right. Hasten. I do not care for people promoting the far right in my live stream, so you're out of here. My name is Jared Berenstein, and I'm here to answer your questions about politics. Throw your questions in the chat, and we will get to answering them. Stephen Peterson, AL, says, non-political, but will you play GTA 6 when it comes out? I've always enjoyed the GTA games. I don't have a ton of time for games these days because I just have a 2-month-old right now. And I don't like playing games when they come out because they're usually pretty expensive. But yeah, I'll probably wait until the hype settles down. What is up, Ecuadorian? Yes, Yassified Abe Lincoln is here. Log says, thoughts on James Fishback. I actually forget who that is. Sophie says, what's your opinion on the anti-intellectualism crisis, and is it related to Trump's governance? So the threat of anti-intellectualism is real. It is a big deal. And I would say that Trump is a symptom of it, but not the cause of it. I would say that the cause of it is the billionaire class. Because what the billionaire class doesn't like is people who are really smart figuring out that the billionaire class should be taxed and figuring out that things like climate change are real. So where there is a scientist or a professor who has figured out that the billionaire class are doing harm, there will be a bunch of billionaires out there paying people to spread this anti-intellectualism fervor to discredit all of those things that they are saying. All right, Log says James Patrick is a candidate for Florida governor running against Byron Donalds. I don't even know who's the Democrat, who's the Republican in that race. What is up, D? D, early bird, LOL, Trump can barely walk. If he tried to twerk, he probably break with legs. That is accurate, says John Abbott. D says, your thoughts on the most recent Supreme Court rulings. So I haven't had time to dig into them fully. The short version, the shooting from the hip version, is they were grossly partisan decisions that were giving Trump exactly what he wanted for no reason. They are going to kill people. Like this, these decisions are going to ruin people's lives. And so a lot of people who had protected status, a lot of people who were quote unquote trying to come here the right way are now going to be deported. And a lot of those people work in healthcare. And so hospitals are going to be understaffed. Hospitals are already underfunded because of mistakes that the Trump administration has already made. So more people are going to die because of this. Tag says, who do you support, Biden or Trump? What a weird question in 2026. Yankfish says, dig, repeat whatever you're told to repeat by your cult masters. That's not a question. Tombo says, you already see the president of Colombia. You got to finish that statement, buddy. Julia says, hi, just joined. Left or right? I am left. Rose Ive says, name 3 active genocides. I guess Israel, Sudan. Yeah, I know there's one Saudi Arabia is doing. Libya? Is that it? I don't remember. All right. Log says Fishback is anti-generative AI and anti-H-1B visas, also running on an anti-APAC campaign. That sounds all right to me, I suppose. But again, I don't know a lot about those 2 candidates. All right, Muhammad A says, what is your view on Iran's government? It's a bad government. Name I can't read says, on your opinion, if Israel had a different president, would you be happy? Oh no, I'm having some connection issues. All right, we're back. And yes, I would be happy if Israel had a different president. Mandul says, what do you think about Nigel Farage? A liar. Liar. Do not endorse, do not vote for. All right, this guy's just calling me a Jew, so that is gonna be a block. All right, Ignacio says, when the Berlin Wall fell down, to which side did the people go? I'm pretty sure they went away from East Germany, right? Or it all just became Germany. There wasn't the split anymore. Barriera says, do you think Israel has a right to exist? I think it does the same way that America has a right to exist, and Canada and Germany and France and Russia. You know, I don't think that having a right to exist makes Israel any more or less special than other countries. What is up, Lauren? Great to see you again. Malad says, do you think types of governments impacts people's mental health? Because I live in Canada and no support. I don't know what you mean by no support. You definitely have more mental health care and healthcare in Canada than we have here in America. So yeah, but I definitely think that types of government do impact people's mental health. Like the type of government that America has right now is detrimental to many people's mental health. All right, Nat Edit says, do you think the House of Lords in the UK should be a fully elected chamber? Oh, I got no idea. Alexander asks, are you voting green? No, I mean, I'm not in the UK, so I'm not voting green. I'm not voting anything in the UK. And the Green Party in America is not a good party, so I would not do that in America. All right, Rosev says, do you think Nigel Farage will become prime minister in the next general election? Polls show he is. I don't know what the rest of that comment is. I don't know. I sure hope not. I think the people in the UK can do a lot better than Nigel Farage. There's not a lot worse than voting for somebody like Nigel Farage. Kieran, good to see you again, says, what do you think of the Reform Party? The Reform Party is a far right-wing party that is trying to convince people that immigrants are bad instead of billionaires. Dis says, are you a Christian? No. I was raised Catholic, but I do not celebrate any religion at the moment. Average Joe says, Fishback is also a groiper. Well, I certainly don't endorse that. Mikhail Beam says, thoughts on Keir Starmer resigning? I think it's probably the right move. Matthias Reiser says, stop yapping, start eating the punani. Good to see you again. Yash says, unfortunately, the new UK party is good, not Labour or Tory. I mean, Labour is better than Tory. Labour is better than Reform. Labour is better than Restore. All right, Adam says, do you think Charlie Kirk death was an inside job? No, I do not. Gabri says, what do you think of, oh, it looks like that's like the hammer and the sickle. I'm for workers owning the means of production, if that's what you're asking. EWT says, there's nothing Catholic about you, and then a whole bunch of stars, which, I'm not really in the mood to play about with anti-Semitism today. Soku says, so are you a liberal Zionist? I would describe myself as a progressive Democrat. I don't really know what you mean by Zionist, so you'd have to clean that up. Yash says, Labor is not better than Tory. All they do is increase tax on the hardworking people and increase welfare. That is inaccurate, Yash. But I'm also not going to get into arguments about UK politics, which is definitely not my specialty. All I can tell you is that Labor is better than Tory. End of conversation. What is up, Nat Cat? Great to see you again. Been a minute. Black Nutter, hello. Matthias says, do you eat it, mate? I have in the past. I probably will in the future. All right, Goy Slayer. I noticed you didn't respond to my last comment. And what is my view on AIPAC? I'm against AIPAC. I'm against all extremely well-funded far right-wing lobbying organizations. Somebody, Purple Flags asked, do you know about Kurdish politics? No, I do not. Optimus says, why not moderate instead of progressive? Really good question. There's a bunch of things that moderate Democrats have done and added to the Democratic platform that I have not signed on for. For example, it is the moderate position to be open to corporate lobbying dollars, and there's sort of like this neoliberal idea of being like really corporate and billionaire friendly in order to sort of like not piss off the billionaire class. You can kind of do both. You can kind of like be good to the billionaires while also be good to the working class. Like that's kind of the progressive, that's kind of like the moderate Democrat position. I just don't think that there's a lot of, I don't think there's a lot of value to that position. A lot of the moderate Dems tend to be a little bit more dogmatic about supporting Israel, even as more and more information is coming out about their war crimes and genocide. Yeah, they tend to be a little bit more, I don't know, they tend to be a little bit more wishy-washy to me. I haven't been impressed by a lot of moderate Democrats. Okay, Quito says, Yassified Lincoln, how does it feel to be back? Oh, so good. Somebody whose name I can't read says, are Israel committing a genocide? So I just want to be very clear about this. I am not an expert on what is or isn't a genocide, but all the experts are saying that the Netanyahu government is perpetuating a genocide. So I think we should just listen to those experts, especially the ones that are in Israel right now. Like there are organizations within Israel who have concluded that what the Netanyahu government is doing is a genocide. So, alrighty, let's see here. Average Joe says, some political elite on the left suggested dividing the party after the NYC primaries. Do you think they would accept splitting the voters based on the opinion of Israel? I don't know, Average Joe. I don't know. It's so stupid. It is so stupid. The people that have been yelling and screaming the hardest about vote blue no matter who and big tent, and now a lot of these same ding dongs like fucking what's his name, the bald-headed dude from Arkansas who was part of Bill Clinton's campaign saying that he can't be a Democrat anymore. Those guys need to fucking eat my butthole, because I'm just like, what the fuck, man? Oh, so now that you're the ones who are potentially looking down the barrel of not being in the minority, of being in the minority in the party, like now you're not cool with vote blue no matter who anymore? Give me a fucking break. All right, David says, you know anything about British politics? The only thing I know about British politics is never vote Tory, never vote Reform, never vote Restore, and Nigel Farage is not somebody you should vote for. All right, Christian says, communism, heart. That's not a question. Maherl Maghrabi says, besides his racism and imperialism, would Theodore Roosevelt be the GOAT U.S. president? I mean, I'd probably go Franklin Roosevelt first. I love me some New Deal politics. But you can make an argument for someone like JFK or Lincoln or Obama. All right, Praise Satan says, if Jesus came back, how do you think it would affect the stock market? Probably crash it, All right, user a bunch of numbers says, what's your opinion on Marxism Leninism? I'm down with workers owning the means of production, if that's what you're asking. John TPS says, do you believe communism can be successful? It already is successful. We already have worker-owned companies in America right now, and they're wildly successful. I just learning more about Dr. Bronner's. Fucking love me some Dr. Bronner's. All right, SLT, good to see you again. Thoughts on abolishing Citizens United, the filibustering electoral college? I'm for all of those things. Let's fucking make it happen. We got to keep the filibuster until Trump is gone, because he's going to do some fucking banana shit without the filibuster. Khalid says, do you think the war will start again? That's a really, I don't know. You know, political predictions aren't really worth anything, so I wouldn't put any stock in it. But all I will say is that attacks are still happening. Traffic has not really increased coming out of the straits. Donald Trump and his entire State Department are extremely incompetent and childish. So yeah, it would not surprise me if it did. Okay, JS says, do you think Trump will try to stand in 2028? I don't know if he's going to run again, but he's definitely going to try to stay president if he can. He would love to stay president until he's dead. Like, that is his ultimate goal, I believe. All right, Christian says, what about the situation between Hezbollah and Israel? I mean, the government of Israel is not a good faith actor. They are guilty of war crimes and genocide. And Hezbollah is a terrorist organization that is fine with citizen casualties so long as they are fighting back against what they view as the, imperialists in Israel. So I was going to say bad on both sides. All right, John says, communism believes in no government or economy. It has not achieved that. However, ? I disagree with that definition of communism. Totally Air Canada says, what's your thoughts on Mark Carney? I think he's okay. Not my area of expertise, but I do think he's okay. Panda says, big government or small government? I think there's the right way and the wrong way to do both of those things, Panda. I would much rather have a big government that is big because we have a lot of social safety nets and welfare programs and outreach and government-funded healthcare and government-funded housing and free public college and universal basic income and shit like that. What the Republican Party does is big government through things like we will invade your privacy so that we can throw you in jail if you are protesting in ways that we don't like, or we are not going to allow you to make decisions based on your own body. We're going to make it harder for you to vote if we think you're going to vote for the other party, stuff like that. All right, scrolling down to the bottom of the TikTok comments. Welcome, everybody. My name is Jared Berenstein, and I'm here to answer your questions about politics, be they left-wing or right-wing, be they simple or complicated. I might not be able to answer, but I will definitely give it my best shot. And everybody is welcome here, whether you are a Republican, a Democrat, some in the middle, or some on the outskirts. I am not here to get into fights with people. I am just here to answer all your good faith questions. Okay, Christian, I already did that one. Oz says, what do you think about the Iraq War in 2003? Terrible war. Awful war. Should not have happened. That's what happens when you put Republicans in charge. Adir Halfon says, if you will have to choose who is the right side, Israel or Arabs? I don't believe that Israel is fighting every Arab or even every Arab nation. But I would say that you don't have to pick a side. You can be on the side of the citizens and be against the governments as well. Robbie says, why do you think birth rates are dropping rapidly? So a couple of things about that, Robbie. It is based on data, a little more complicated than just people don't have kids when their life is hard. Like, there are definitely times when population declines have happened because people are having so much fun not having kids. But I will say that staring down the barrel of a climate apocalypse and a cost of living crisis that is only getting worse day by day, I think that is largely contributing to the birth rates dropping. Maybe don't make life so hard if you want us to have kids. If you want us to have kids, maybe you should make it safe for them to go to school instead of me worrying that they're going to get shot by a mass shooter or something. Dis asks, you atheists. I would never say that I'm an atheist. I am not confident that there is no God the same way that I'm not confident that there is a God. But I will say I prefer to call myself agnostic because it's like, because I just don't know. I just don't know. And nobody does. Okay, Nash Gabriel says, do you think 2028 will be a year for Democratic Socialists of the USA, especially if AOC wins? So, Nash, nothing would make me happier, but we need to keep in mind that there are still a lot of very good, reasonable, centrist Democrats who are winning in America right now in places where progressives will not. So, yes, potentially. It seems as though the Mamdani effect is real. It seems that people are recognizing the value of being an economic populist who is not defunding the police. But sometimes those messages take a really long time to reach the middle of the country, and we might be getting the memos on the coast, but people in Wisconsin or people in what's another good swing state, Michigan, might not be getting those memos yet. All right, Maddie asks, do you support Carol? I don't know who that is. LB says, who is right, Israel or Hezbollah? I think they're both wrong. Tweeglun says, Trump just said he would be a good communist. Trump said that he would be a good communist? What a weird thing to say. I would love to know the context behind that. All right, Pope Doc says, do you think it is impossible to have a true communist society like Marx's vision with no government? I don't know that Marx's vision was that there would be no government. And maybe it's possible, maybe it's not possible to have a fully communist society. I think it's much more likely to have a mixed model in the near future that doesn't, we're not all suffering from unregulated crony capitalism. Like that seems to be a better thing there. Okay, Ania says, what is communism? I would define communism as workers under the means of production, and I would say that you don't need to have every company being employee owned in order to have communism. Like I would argue that because we have some employee owned companies here in America, that we already have some communism in America. Christian says, are you a communist? I'm not a communist, I'm not a socialist, I'm not a capitalist. I believe in a mixed model. GS asks, do you support a centrally planned economy? To some extent, I think we definitely need to have regulations for capitalism to not, result in unchecked monopolies and and wild and unrelenting pollution and shit like that. Nikita says, do you think centrism is bad in your opinion? I do think that centrism is bad. If somebody out there considers themselves to be a centrist Democrat, I'm not mad at that person. But I do think that some people have an unrealistic idea of what it means to be a centrist. Because if you're just trying to be in the center, no matter how far to the right the Republican Party goes, you are lining yourself up to be just a regular Republican. Because if they know that you're going to be in the center no matter what, they'll just go even further to the right so that your position ends up landing on what they eventually want to be. All right, Christian says, do you admire Che Guevara? I don't know nearly enough about him. EC Me says, you see me says, do you support Ukraine or Russia? Ukraine, without question. I mean, I support the citizens of both countries, but the government of Russia is the antagonist in that war. Ido Amante says, what do you think about libertarianism? Libertarianism does not work. We have seen it not work in many places, but also libertarianism, the political philosophy, was created by the billionaire class so that they would not have to pay taxes. So I do not believe in supporting billionaires. I think they're doing fine already without my support. So I'm going to vote for reining in the billionaires, for taxing the billionaires, and for regulating their corporations so that they don't just spill a whole bunch of toxic waste into my food and water and air. Davi says, what do you think about AIPAC? I'm against AIPAC the same way that I'm against the Heritage Foundation and the Federalist Society. GS says, name me one place where libertarianism didn't work. Argentina. GS, Argentina. You just emailed me about Argentina, and I said, you mean the country that we had to give $20 billion bailout to because their economy was crashing? Argentina. There was also a city somewhere in the Northeast, I forget the name of it, that their town got taken over by bears because they tried libertarianism. Master Game Angel says, what are your thoughts? America's shield. I don't know what that means. Christian says, is socialism more ideal than communism? I say let's just have a little bit of both. Let's have some government programs and let's have some private companies that are owned by the workers. Dreeny says, explain capitalism and consumerism. Capitalism is basically the free market will solve all problems. So if healthcare is too expensive, don't worry, because the free market will settle it. If one company is polluting the water, don't worry, the free market will settle it. People will learn what this company is doing and they'll decide not to shop there. They will take their business elsewhere and that will solve that problem. I think that we've seen many, many, many examples of that not working, which is why I do not believe that a fully capitalist model or unregulated capitalism is the solution. Zenov Petrov says, thoughts about U.S. relations with foreign countries, especially in the Middle East. So I would say that it goes up and down depending on who is in charge. Obviously, for a really long time, America has had a deleterious effect on the Middle East. And even when we have had presidents that have had their hearts in the right place, like Obama and like Biden, we still end up mucking things up because we have decades of terrible Middle East policy that we're still trying to fix and repair. But yeah, especially when we have Republicans in charge, things tend to get a little bit worse. I would say a lot worse, especially if you're in an allied country like in Europe and shit like that. But yeah, it definitely goes up and down, which is another reason why I advocate for people voting for Democrats, because at least we'll have a fucking adult State Department that doesn't just believe in bombing to solve all of our problems. Okay, Nadim says Lebanon and Israel just signed a deal. What do you think? I'm happy to hear that. I want peace over everything else, and so hopefully because of that deal, if that's true, I don't know if it is true, but hopefully that means that the ceasefire between Iran and America will hold as well. Ali says, did Obama have his heart in the right place when he bombed Syria? Yeah, Ali, would you like me to go into more detail on that? And I can tell you that if you asked Obama or anybody that worked for the Obama administration, they would tell you that what they did in Syria was probably a mistake. But I can 100% argue why they had their heart in the right place when they bombed Syria. I'm happy to go into that. Okay, let's see here. I8BM says Republicans will mostly win as Christians aren't Republicans. I don't know if that makes any sense. I8BM. All right, Ali says thoughts on Trump recognizing Moroccan sovereignty over Western Sahara in his first term. I don't know anything about that. GS says natural monopolies can occur in a fully free market. I already explained you that, and you didn't disprove. I sent you exactly 2 messages, GS, and one of them was disproving everything that you said, because I pointed out that Argentina does not have a good economy because they're libertarian. So yeah, I have not heard a single argument for how a free market stops monopolies from happening. We have a lot of examples of a lack of regulation causing monopolization. We do not have any examples of the opposite happening. All right, Matan Hanan says, how can we politically explain Donald Trump reversal regarding Iran? Donald Trump he's like an amoeba. He's like a single-celled organism. Like, his motivations are not really that complicated. He does what people tell him to do if they kiss his ass. He does what people tell him to do if they give him a lot of money. He does what people tell him to do if he's threatened. And his political future, his life outside of jail, is threatened if this war continues. If prices continue to go up, if we continue to waste a whole bunch of money on bombs and shit, if we continue doing civilian casualties in Iran, if American service members keep getting wounded and killed, that is detrimental to Donald Trump's potential future. And so he wants to end the war so that that does not happen to him. Okay, John Abbott says, do you think that at this point the Brits have more reason to celebrate the 4th of July than we do? That is an argument could be made, my guy. I8BM says, opinions on the Pope. We got a dope Pope. First American Pope. Pope Leo kills it, man. One of the top popes of all time. Okay, Sipple says, do you think the USA should move to universal health care? Yes, 100%. Fletch Lives Again says, who do you think is or would be a great organizer of anti-MAGA movements like boycotting MAGA companies? AOC? Oh, definitely. I mean, yeah, who's a good organizer? Ben Winkler over in Wisconsin is great, but yeah, there's a lot of really, the people, the Amanda Littman over at Run for Something is great. There's too many for me to even think of. I8 says, is college a scam? An argument could be made, but I still think that an education is valuable. Matan Hanan says, so why did he actually start the war with Iran? There's a bunch of potential motivations. I think the simplest one is the easiest. Netanyahu and warmongers like Lindsey Graham, who are heavily invested in the military-industrial complex, convinced Trump to do it and said, you'll be the greatest president of all time if you do this. You'll topple Iran and everybody will be shouting your names from the rooftops. They lied. Okay, someone whose name I can't read said, are you Israeli? No, I am not. Born and raised in America. Dude Mashut says, companies are worthless. The only true key to success is through the states. Agree to disagree on that one. Jose Mato says, America doesn't have a universal health care like any other civilized country. That is accurate, Jose. We do not. GS says the state is a monopoly. No, it's not. GS, the state works in conjunction with the free market. J Ship says, how would you go around the Fifth Amendment to socialize oil slash the Fifth Amendment to socialize oil slash energy? I mean, we've already nationalized certain industries. We have already decided that certain resources are not just commodities, but are I forget what the word is. They're essentials, and so we regulate them in some ways. And the Trump administration has already taken partial ownership of some companies and basically socialized them. So it doesn't really seem like there's a huge barrier to entry there. I think the biggest barrier to entry is for politicians who do that on the left to continue winning elections, because people will believe the right-wing propaganda that them doing that is somehow a slippery slope into communism and bread lines and socialism in Venezuela and shit like that. All right, Victor says, what do you think about NATO and their interventions? I think organizations that promote unity and peace are better than countries that are trying to dissolve them. So I do not believe that NATO is intervening in ways that are causing more instability. I think that they are responding in ways that are normal. But if there's something specific that you're talking about that I don't know about, let me know, Victor. I8 says, is Mission Impossible or James Bond better? I would say that Mission Impossible probably has a better track record. I think there are way more bad James Bond movies than there are bad Mission Impossible movies. I will fucking stake my reputation behind Mission Impossible 4, 5, and 6. Those movies are fucking dope as hell. All right, John DPS says, why is a lot of Eastern nations using Western politics and policies? I don't know exactly what you're referring to, my guy. Victor says, like bombing of Serbia and Montenegro in 99. That I don't know nearly enough about, Victor, so sorry about that. Jose Mato says, unlike Fox MAGA fools, you're... Oh, thank you, Jose, I appreciate that. Anarcho-economics says, what do you think about anarcho-capitalism? I'm against it. Sopo Mia says, would you go to war with China to defend Taiwan? If yes or no, then why? It's a difficult question. I don't think that it would be an okay thing for China to try to take over Taiwan. I think that America is doing the right thing in supporting Taiwan's independence, but war it's big and it's disastrous for people and for economies and for the environment, and especially where you have superpowers going to war against each other. Like right now, America is involved in like a bunch of proxy wars, like supporting Ukraine versus Russia, and it is a miracle that has not escalated in more terrible ways. And so, yeah, do we want to go to war with China? I would say absolutely not. But maybe there are other ways that we can support Taiwan and potentially incentivize China to not try to take them over. But I mean, especially since we basically wasted all of our ammunition fighting the stupid war in Iran, I don't even know if we're prepared to fight a war with China right now. Okay, Average Joe says, did you know, according to the UN, resistance is justified when people are occupied? Well, that's news to me, Average Joe. I'd be interested in knowing if that is a real thing or not. All right, let's see here. Neo-libertarian Flangela says, it's impossible to be neutral in Israel-Palestine. Palestine is in the right. I mean, I think that the citizens of both countries are essentially innocent, but I don't think that Hamas is in the right in slaughtering 1,000 Israelis. Mark says, what's your opinion on President James Garfield? Could he have been one of the best? I have no idea. That's not really my area of expertise, unfortunately. Okay, GS is telling Anarcho-Economics that he thinks that taxing the rich would fix everything. Don't even try with him. I mean, I would love for somebody to prove me wrong. I would love for somebody to show me where we have taxed the rich and it has not fixed problems. Log and Dixon says, should we restore Christendom? No, I think having freedom of religion is probably the best. Farouk Ibrahim says, what do you think about Zohar Mamdani? Dope as hell. Goated. All right. Eyebrow says, you support migration? I do support migration. I think people should be able to move to a different country if they want, especially if they're seeking asylum. They should. Alfie says, what do you think of President Trump? One of the worst presidents that America has ever had. Very likely the most corrupt and incompetent president that America has ever had. He is legislating as somebody who believes in being a racist and misogynist and anti-Semite and homophobe. He is governing as somebody who wishes to dismantle democracy and create a fascist dictatorship. So yeah, couldn't say enough negative things about Trump if I was given 100 years. C says, so you are far left. I don't know. It depends on how you define far left. I call myself a progressive Democrat. Jawad says, what about Israel? What about Israel? I8 says, if Christianity is the main religion in America, how do you expect the Democrats to win? Well, the Democrats are not anti-Christianity. The Democrats believe in freedom of religion. They believe that you should be Christian if you want to be Christian, but you should also be able to be a Muslim, and you should be able to be a Jewish person and a Buddhist and a Hare Krishna, whatever. You should be able to, start your own religion, be a Scientologist. You could be a Taoist or a Shintoist. Jawad says, do you hate Israel or not? I hate the government. I don't hate the people. Franks Farouk says, what do you think about social democracy? If it is having a, if it's like Mamdani shit and AOC shit, then I'm for it. Shanit says, hot take, but the U.S. doesn't have left-leaning parties. Dems are way closer to center than left. I have heard that take many times, Shanit, and I don't buy it. I think that the Democratic Party encompasses both the far left and the center left. All right. GS says, anti-Semite, he got most money from Israel than any other president. I'm sorry, what? You talking? Are you trying to argue that Trump is not anti-Semitic because he gave Israel the most money? Yeah, no. Thumbs down on that, GS. I'm right about to boot you unless you start asking good faith questions, GS. All right, Henry says, Brexit was the worst thing that happened to the UK. What are your opinions? I 100% agree with you. We were not prepared for billionaire-funded propaganda, and that includes Putin-funded propaganda. And so Brexit happened because we were not prepared. Do not let it happen again, UK. Do not vote for Nigel Farage. Do not vote Reform. Do not vote Restore. Jay says, thoughts on Thune not getting Save America Act? I mean, the votes aren't there. The Save America Act is a bad piece of legislation. Many Republicans recognize that it would disenfranchise some of their own voters. Even if it would help them steal elections in the future, they don't want to pass it. And so they're not passing it. The votes are not there. All right, I8 says, where is the line for stand-up? How far is too far? Do you mean like stand-up comedy? I mean, that's a moving target, man. Michael Hicks says, can you explain Brexit? Sure. The UK used to be a part of the European Union, but a bunch of right-wing billionaires were trying to convince people that they were wasting their money by being a part of the EU, and that their lives would be a lot better if they were not subsidizing all of these European countries just want to drink wine and eat cheese and have sex and labor unions. And the billionaires paired with, hostile foreign nations like Russia just flooded social media with a bunch of propaganda telling everybody how much money they'd be saving if they weren't in the EU and how much better everything would be if they weren't in the EU. And a bunch of people in the UK got tricked into voting for it, and now everything is worse. Jawad says, would you support cutting all funding to Israel? This is the easiest question I have answered since I started doing this live stream. Yes, for two reasons. Number one, it's the morally right thing to do. If the country is doing war crimes and genocide with our money and our bombs, we should stop sending it over to them. That's number one. Number two is we already have a law that says that we're not allowed to do this. I believe it's called the Leahy Law, that says that if a government has been found guilty of doing war crimes, and not even we don't even need there to be genocide. We just got to have war crimes, and we've known about that for a while. Then we are not allowed to send them any more money and weapons. And so, in defiance of our own laws, America has continued to send money and weapons to Israel. Stop doing it. Stop doing it immediately. Michael Blount says, is there some kind of law preventing lead change during war, and does that come into play with Iran? I'm actually not really sure what you mean by that question, Michael. Can you rephrase? All right, Mikhail says, why do you never read my question? I read your question often, Mikhail. I got to be honest, my guy. I just don't feel like defining liberalism again today. Okay, yay, says, would you consider yourself a communist? No, I'm not a communist. I'm not a socialist. I'm not a capitalist. I believe in a mixed model. Dwight says, is the fear of Russian nukes why Europe kowtows to America? No, I think there are a bunch of different reasons why Europe usually kowtows to America. I think for a long time, America has been a good partner to Europe, and we have kind of supported each other in trade and in politics. During the first and now the second Trump administration, America has proven to be a bad partner to Europe, and so they're starting to stand up to America now. All right, Osama bin Russell says the Green Party policies on NATO and energy is terrible. I don't know if I agree with that. 312MQ says, why is the UN scared to just say that Israel is committing a genocide? I mean, didn't the UN just come out with that report that said that Israel was purposefully targeting children? That feels that feels like enough to me, you know? Like I'm surprised if that's true that the UN has not decided that it was a has not concluded that it was a genocide, especially considering that piece of evidence that they just concluded of themselves. But yeah, there are enough independent organizations that are calling it a genocide that I don't need necessarily the UN to be a part of that. It's possible that political pressure from Israel and America is keeping them from making that conclusion. Amir says, what do you think about Trotskyism? Don't know enough about it. Jame says, is Trump the route to what we fought against? That is a little too vague for me, Hame. Alfie says, do you like the UK government? It's okay. Michael Blount says, I thought we couldn't change presidents during war. Oh, no, we can and have many times in the past. Jawad says, do you support removing American military bases from the Middle East? Ooh, difficult question, Jawad. So because America's policies towards the Middle East have been so disastrous, there are many places in the Middle East where people want American troops to be. For example, we were in Afghanistan for a really long time because the government of Afghanistan was not prepared to fight against the Taliban, and they wanted us to be there. But the government of Afghanistan was also extremely corrupt, and they were kind of like lazily accepting America protecting them from the Taliban, and they weren't kind of doing the steps that we were asking them to do to kind of like take up this fight so that America could leave. So are there places that American bases currently are that is doing more good than harm? I'm pretty confident that the answer is yes, though this isn't really my area of expertise, so I can't say confidently that the answer is 100% yes or 100% no. I just think it's probably better that we have a foothold in that region right now. I am open to an argument that we should just leave entirely. But my gut is telling me it's a little bit more complicated than that. Okay, Average Joe says, I humbly request you read the quote on the UN resolution which fulfilled your request for verification. Hold on a second. Let me go back up some of these comments here. John Abbott linked the UN article on the Discord about 20 minutes ago. Did you see that Israel is thinking about making excuses to attack Turkey? Says Direct Luminosity. I have not seen that. Okay, John Abbott said they originally concluded that it was a G-site. So yeah, John Abbott is saying that yes, the UN has declared last year that what Israel is doing is a genocide. Thank you very much. Okay, Average Joe. So I'm not going to click on this link. I believe you. I believe you. Let's see here. Reaffirms the legitimacy of the struggle of peoples for independence, territorial integrity, national unity, and liberation from colonial and foreign domination and foreign occupation by all means, including armed struggle. Yeah, but that does not appear to me to include targeting civilians, right, Average Joe? Let's see here. Green 4 ever says, are Dems likely to get both the House and the Senate in the midterms? Please say yes. So I'm not going to say green forever because I want you to do the work. I want you to assume that without you doing the work to elect more Democrats in the House and Senate, then they are not going to get both houses. I don't think that anybody can tell you for sure whether or not Democrats will get both houses because there's, questionability about what happens in the future, making Democrats more or less popular, making Republicans more or less popular, Trump more or less popular, whatever. But also, the Trump administration and the Republican Party are dead set on doing whatever illegal shit they can to try to steal upcoming elections. Let me repeat that. The Trump administration is going to try to cheat in the 26 and 28 election. And so part of our goal has to be not only to talk to our state and local governments to make sure they have contingency plans for any of the illegal shit that Trump might try to do, but also we need to make these elections too big to rig. We need this to be such an overwhelming mandate against the Trump administration that any chicanery and fuckery that they try to do will ultimately be unsuccessful. So I'm not going to tell you that this thing is in the bag. I'm just going to say do the work. Make it happen. Alrighty. Let's see what we got here. Scrolling. Jarrett is scrolling. All right, yay. So Republicans want the WHPA to pass because libs will keep aborting while the Republicans keep reproducing. That is a weird thing to say, yay. As though Republicans don't have abortions. As though Donald Trump has not personally paid for abortions. But I also don't know what WHPA stands for. AFD says, do you think foreign aid to African policies actually benefit African nations? I think generally speaking, yes. There's definitely right and wrong ways to do foreign aid, but I'm pretty confident that USAID was a net positive for African nations. And I think the reason why we are seeing such turmoil there right now is partially because Doge went in and completely annihilated USAID. I8 says, do you hope America to be pro-life? No, I hope America to be pro-choice. Abdul says, we need to do something about the Supreme Court. 8 years is the maximum for these old farts. Yeah, I mean, if we vote for Democrats, then we can get better Supreme Court justices. If we vote for the right Democrats, we could potentially expand the Supreme Court. If we vote for enough of the right Democrats, we could potentially impeach some of the Supreme Court justices for some of their illegal behavior. So, yeah, again, vote for Democrats, guys. Alrighty, let's see here. Mikhail Meme says, what would you do if Trump used your house and property as a military base? I mean, I would probably call the police, get a lawyer, shit like that. Weatherman says, how do you feel about the next Dem expanding SCOTUS to 13? Why stop there? Let's fucking pump up those numbers. KZY says, will Kurdistan be a country soon? I have no idea. I8 says, what's the best argument for pro-life and vice versa? I don't have a good argument for pro-life. I think that the only legitimate reason that a person could say that they are pro-life is because they personally believe that abortion is murder, and so they will not do that themselves. I do not think there is any justification for policing whether another person gets an abortion or not, considering that there are medical reasons for getting an abortion. It only makes sense that you should allow abortion if it's medically necessary. Then that's not murder, I guess. So murder's okay if you're saving a person's life? Question mark, you know? So yeah, the pro-choice argument is that if you try to ban abortion, then women who are trying to get pregnant and have babies die. We just have the evidence of that. We have the evidence that abortion bans do not decrease abortions. They only make pregnancy more dangerous for women. That was not the most eloquent way I've ever made that point, but it is 100% accurate, so I got that going for me. Okay. All right. BW says, do you think the UK should go back to the EU? Yes, 100%. John DPS says, abortion should be a negative freedom. Banning it is undemocratic. Personally, freedom from cohesion? Do you mean coercion, John? I'm not really sure about that. But I think we generally agree that abortion should be legal. Small Peener says, abortion should be between a woman and a doctor, not your business. I love it when people with really silly names have very, very cogent and sincere comments. You make a really good point, Small Peener. You make a really good point. Everybody should listen to Small Peener. All right, Arctic says, what do you think about communism? Well, I'm for workers owning the means of production, if that's what you're asking. Georgie, I do not answer questions about neo-libertarian phalangelism because I don't think it's a real thing. I think it's a troll question. Kurd says, do you think Kurdistan should be recognized as a country? I have no idea. Fog of War Productions, great to see you again, says, I like the concept of crisis pregnancy centers. I got to be honest, Fog of War, I think this is going to be one of our areas of disagreement. Because if I'm remembering correctly, crisis pregnancy centers are those places where they kind of trick women into thinking they can get an abortion there, but all they do instead is just try to convince women not to get abortions. Is that correct? Do we have the same understanding, Fog of War? Because that rubs me the wrong way for a bunch of different reasons. Like, getting an abortion is already so hard for women emotionally. I don't understand why we need to trick them in addition. Okay, I8 says, what do you call a pro-life liberal? A libertarian, maybe? I don't know. No, I guess that would be the opposite. I guess maybe a Christian liberal or something? I don't know. All right, Georgie, not answering that question. Kurt says, will Iran and the U.S. war start again? I have no idea. I don't really trust the U.S. State Department to negotiate things well because of who's currently in charge of it. I will say that I just saw somebody in the chat say that there was an agreement between Lebanon and Israel, and I think that that could potentially buoy any further peace negotiations. Geo says, "What you call a goyim?" I don't really use that word because I believe it's a pejorative for somebody who's not Jewish, right? Fog of War Production says, "I thought it was like state-run medical centers that can help pregnant women." I think, yeah, let's figure out where we're having a disagreement in that definition, Fog of Wars, because I'm down for pregnant women getting helped. I don't like what do you call it? I just don't like women getting tricked into hearing into hearing reasons why they shouldn't get an abortion when they think they're going to a place where they could get abortion. Okay, Seb says, "Do you think there will be a recession by the end of this year due to an AI burst bubble?" Seb, I gotta be honest. So first of all, I am not qualified to give any kind of financial advice. So this is not financial advice. I am stunned that we are not already in a recession because of all of the stupid fiscal decisions that the Trump administration has made. It seems as though we should already be in a recession. I doubt whether or not we are going to get out of this AI bubble without some sort of a recession. I am personally betting that there is going to be some sort of financial crash. We were already seeing that. Like there was a pretty big tech sell off this week. I don't know where it's at right now. I haven't checked the most recent numbers. I would not be surprised if it just continued, going for the next couple of weeks or months or whatever. Mikhail Meme says, "My mom is crying since you just broke up with her." Well, you got to tell her that so many moms need me, Brando says, "Why is Ben Shapiro declining?" Excellent question, Brando. So my personal view is that a lot of Ben Shapiro's popularity has been astroturfed by the billionaire class because he's been really useful for them. Now, it does appear as though him being so aggressively pro-Israel and pro continuing to fund and arm Israel is potentially getting rid of all of the real fans that he has. And it's possible that astroturfing is just not effective anymore because of that. It's possible that the billionaire class sees a much more valuable mouthpiece in somebody like Tucker Carlson or Candace Owens, and so they're just moving their investments over there instead. Whatever the reason is, and I think the Israel thing has a big part of it. I'm just really happy to see it. That a liar and a con artist is losing money. Makes me happy every single day. All right, John Abbott has got a clarification for us on the crisis pregnancy centers. John Abbott says crisis pregnancy centers are anti-abortion religious centers. They've just got a massive amount of PR funding to make people think they're actual medical centers. So there we have it. Fog of War, no tea, no shade for you, Fog of War. I got a lot of love for you, but I believe we have confirmation that crisis pregnancy centers are not good. All right, Weatherman says, "What do you think about the conspiracy theory that Charlie Kirk was offed by an explosive in his mic?" I'm skeptical of it. I don't really put anything past the Trump administration as far as like doing shady shit and covering up evidence that makes them look bad. But I haven't really seen any direct evidence to suggest that is the case. All right, Abdul says, "Do you know anything about progressive capitalists that some Democrats called themselves?" Do you know anything about progressive capitalist that some Democrats... Progressive capitalist? I mean, to me, I don't know anything about any Democrats who call themselves that. To me, that sounds like a way of saying you're kind of like trying to toe the line between being a progressive and being a neoliberal. Like saying that you believe that there are ways that we can assist in capitalist enterprises and support profitable companies while also potentially raising taxes for the wealthiest and most profitable, regulating the most profitable, maybe breaking up monopolies. I don't know. You'd have to ask them where that line is in their policies. But yeah, this really is splitting hairs in my opinion. Yeah, I don't know. It seems weird to me because I think that the strongest message in progressivism is being economically populist. And I think that being a capitalist or self-described capitalist is kind of antithetical to that, I would guess. that's what it feels like to me. A lot of politics is branding, and so I don't know if I would advocate for that branding for whatever politician I was advising. Fog of War Production says, whoever had the clarification on pregnancy centers, thank you. Yeah, that's my guy John Abbott. He's dope as hell. Abdul says, the congressman from Silicon Valley in Barrier, California. Yeah, I don't know who that is. Jay Ships, great to see you again, says, what is the most corrupt policy of Donald Trump's administration? Probably him having a crypto coin, or him selling political pardons. Like, not only is he making money off of pardoning people who are 100% guilty, not only did he pardon people that beat the shit out of cops on January 6th, who then went on to do like child sex crimes, but also he has pardoned people and excused them from their fiscal penalty, which is literally taking money out of Americans' pockets. So he is stealing from the American people and letting criminals out onto the street. So I would say it's probably one of those two. All right, Legion followed me. Finally, Legion. All right, somebody who just has these guys in his name says, "Yo, can I talk? I requested to speak." I don't always allow people up, but if you're patient, sometimes people get lucky, and I bring them up. JJ says the BLM riots were worse than January 6th. No, they were not. JJ, I am happy to go into more detail on why they were not, but you should just know that that is a false thing that you just said. Legion says, I got banned, Unk. Who banned you? What did you say, Legion? My mods don't ban people for no reason. Okay. Average Joe says, what's Trump most cross policy? NSPM 7 has to be up there, right? Remind me what NSPM 7 is. Toy Groiper, boy, don't have a lot of high hopes for this comment. What's your thoughts on the Talmud and what it says about the divine soul for Jews and animal souls for Goyim? I don't really have an opinion about that. I am not a practicing Jewish person. I'm Jewish in name only and on my dad's side, which I believe Jews would say I'm not even Jewish. I think Hitler would say I'm Jewish because I got this beautiful fucking Jewish face and Jewish last name. But yeah, I don't celebrate. I didn't study, the Talmud or anything like that. Joe says, what do the three branches of government do? Excellent question. So the three branches are the executive, the legislative, and the judiciary. The judiciary settles law. The legislative makes laws, and they handle the budget. And the executive is in control of the military and nominations, and they sign bills. I think that's generally accurate, what I just said. Okay, let's see here. JJ says BLM riots resulted in more deaths, injuries, and property damage. JJ, so you're in question jail. You are saying things that are false. If you would like to ask me why they are false, I am happy to do that, but you are not allowed to spam my live with false things. Kazteo says, what do you think about the Social Democrats winning recently? I love it. I'm all for it. One of them is pretty extreme, though, and has said some things and not gone back on them that I think is a little weird. So I'm not going to 100% endorse, I forget whatever her name is, that person. But I do think, I love the trend of progressive candidates winning. Like, I think that is better for the country, better for the party in general. All right, Jamie says, why do people still like Trump after the Epstein files? Propaganda, misinformation. There is a sunk cost fallacy to being in a cult, Jamie, where it takes a lot to bring people up because they think I have dedicated a decade of my life to thinking this is a good guy, a great leader, a smart businessman. I would feel so fucking dumb if to now realize, to have to internalize the reality that I was wrong. All right, Smartphone says, what do you know about UK politics and Andy Burnham? I don't know a ton. I only know never vote for Nigel Farage. Andy Burnham, I'm excited for him. It seems like he might have better sort of like presentation than Keir Starmer. Maybe he won't make as many mistakes as Keir Starmer did. But notably, I do not believe that Andy Burnham has released any kind of platform or anything. So we're all looking forward to that. Okay, waiting for that question, JJ, unless you got blocked and muted already, which I would not be mad about. Okay, Teddy Bear says, greetings from Israel. Greetings, my Israeli friend. How do you feel about what your government is doing right now? Teddy bear emoji. All right, Ruski says, Unk, what do you think about Banderites posing as Democrats in Ukraine? I have no idea what Banderites are. Ruski, I don't know what that is. All right, Ali says, do you agree that socialism is better than capitalism slash communism? I think it's really easy to look at the current state of late stage capitalism. I think it's really easy to look at what late stage capitalism has wrought and say, this is bad. But I will say, in a world in which we have less capitalism and a world in which it is regulated so that we don't have monopolies and we don't have companies dumping all the chemical runoff from their factories into our water and shit like that, I think that in a world where we have government run healthcare and employee owned companies, I think we could look at capitalism as being a very valuable part of our economic system. But I'm down. I am 100% down with all the hate that it's getting right now because this version fucking sucks, man. So yeah, shooting from the hip. I don't think that any one of those ideologies is any better or worse than the other. I think we need a mixed model. I think we need a little bit of all of those things. I am open to the idea that we don't need capitalism at some time in the future, that it might be better to eventually get rid of it. I don't think we are anything close to that, and I have not heard a good argument for that. Alrighty, let's see here. John Abbott says, one of the ways cults make it hard to leave is convincing members that everyone outside the cult is hostile to them and that the cult is the only safe place. That is another reason why. All right, Toy Groiper says, what do you think of Nick Fuentes and Groiper's plan to vote blue in the 26 midterms? I'll believe it when I see it, Toy Groiper. I will take every Democratic vote that I can get. I believe that the country will get better the more people that vote for Democrats. But I am skeptical. I don't think that Nick Fuentes is a good guy. And so I doubt that he is actually going to do that. Okay, let's see here. Average Joe, yes, I did say I was unfamiliar with NSPM7. Give me a little bit more detail on that. Let me know. Hockey's Cool says, do you think it would be better if the U.S. shifts away from older politicians and adds an age limit? Yes, I do think it would be better. Hockey's Cool, 100%. I think that if you're going to be in the government, you should have some fucking skin in the game, not just try to fucking, mess up with a whole bunch of shit right before you die. Righty. Führer says, what state do you live in? Currently California, but I used to live in Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. Not at the same time, of course. The Trumpinator said, should men be in women's sports? Trumpinator, I don't give a shit. I don't care who plays in what league. Why don't we have, instead of it being men versus men in women's league, why don't we have skill-based levels? So maybe you have guys who are really bad at sports like myself playing in one league, and then you have women who are fucking kick-ass at sports playing with men in another league. I don't care. I don't care. God damn. Is there any stupider issue to vote away democracy based off of than that? Kamar says, do you support AIPAC? No, I do not. I do not support any far right-wing billionaire-funded organization. Führer says, thoughts on Gavin Newsom? Gavin Newsom, in my opinion, is a perfectly average politician, a solid B average politician. He is not going to be my first choice in the primary. If he wins the primary, he will 100% have my support in the general. I will happily and enthusiastically vote for him in the general election. I will happily and enthusiastically vote for whoever wins the Democratic primary in the general election because the Democratic platform is better than the Republican platform by a lot. It's not even close. Jojo says, I'm a left-winger. Well, welcome, my left-wing buddy. Führer says, Newsom or AOC? If I had to pick, I'd go AOC. All right, Teddy Bear says, with 57 Islamic countries, why can't people have just one Jewish country? I don't believe that it's beneficial to have a theocracy, Teddy Bear emoji, but that wasn't really my question to you. I don't know if you answered my question earlier, but are you aware of the actions of your government? Are you cool with things like genocide and war crimes and the IDF specifically targeting children? Like, does that stuff not bother you? Oreo20 says, for all of the crimes, corruption he has done, why has he not been prosecuted? Really good question, Oreo20. So there's a couple of things that you need to keep in mind for that question. So number one, you got to look at who has been in charge of holding Trump accountable while he has committed the most of his crimes. And for the large majority of time, the people that have been in charge have been Republicans. And the Republican Party is very clear on this. They do not give a shit about you or I. They give a shit about their own money and power. And so as long as Donald Trump is useful to them, they will not hold him accountable no matter what crimes he does. He could insult their moms and murder their dads. They don't give a shit. They are not going to impeach him. They are barely standing up to him now, despite all the shit that he has done in his second term. Like, it is stunning. It is shocking that they're allowing this to happen. The second reason is because he is a rich and powerful man, and it is very difficult to hold rich and powerful people accountable because they have lawyers and they have many mechanisms by which they can either delay or skirt accountability. Now, I read Injustice, which is the book about the Justice Department and the ways in which Trump fucked with it and the reason why it was not able to hold him accountable during the Biden administration. And short version is, it was a hard thing to do in only 4 years. Now, some people want to say Merrick Garland was feckless, he didn't go after him hard enough. Based on that book, that doesn't seem like it was the case. It seems like he tried his best, but there were too many people working against him, too many degrees of difficulty, political, motivations and, contrary billionaire activities, shit like that. I'm sure I'm open to an argument that it was Merrick Garland's fault, but I also just think that it was a very difficult thing to do in just 4 years. Okay, let's see here. Toy Groiper says, he already has multiple monologues of the importance of voting blue to stop the bleeding, weaken the GOP to allow a far-right nationalist to do what Trump did because the party has been hijacked. As a secular and culturally Jewish man, do you have any thoughts about the state of world Jewry addressed by the World Jewish Congress, where they discuss how to use influence to advance interests of Israel and Jewish diaspora worldwide? Ooh, very big comments there, Toy Groper. So here's the thing, Toy Groper. I know that Nick Fuentes has said this in multiple monologues. I don't think he's a good guy. I don't trust him. So, he could say it a million times. Trump said that he wasn't going to do Project 2025, but he was lying about that. Liars be lying. Okay, and as far as the World Jewish Congress, where they discuss how to use influence to advance the interests of Israel and Jewish diaspora, if the government of Israel was not doing war crimes and genocide, I would not have a problem with an organization that tries to protect their religion and their followers, and every religion kind of has that, what do you call it? That element to it. I do understand that it's not doing us any favors as far as dispelling all of those rumors about there being, the Jews secretly controlling everything. Okay, Ruslix, good to see you again, says, what do you think of moderate Democrats being worried about the populism behind Mamdani's wins? I think that there are some Democrats who are operating in good faith and are worried that it's going to kill them in red and purple states. But I think that as they are knocking up wins and proving that they can win in the general election, I think what they are showing themselves to be are people that are more concerned about protecting their own power and their own jobs. And I think that's fucking bullshit. Okay, Triska, Mia, and SLT, thank you so much for helping me reach my first gift goal of the day. All right, Average Joe says to use vague, broad labels that encompass First Amendment protected police unconnected to any actual criminal conduct. Okay, so this then, NSPM7, is the thing to support for the overthrow of federal government extremism. So this is the thing that is like saying that Antifa is a terrorist organization, that if you're a protester, you're a terrorist. Is that accurate, Average Joe? Am I picking up on what you're putting down? What is up, K Yeti? Good to see you again. Fuhrer says AIPAC funds both parties. What's the point? Okay, Fuhrer. So there's something that's very important to realize about this. Okay, AIPAC has lost many politicians their elections, and especially if you are a progressive Democrat, AIPAC has made sure that you do not win your election. That's number one. Number two is getting elected is very, very expensive. Not everybody is a Mamdani who can just go viral and the world fucking loves him. A lot of politicians need a lot of money in order to stay competitive. All right, Queenie and Green Forever and Mia, thank you so much for helping me reach my second gift goal of the day. So I will say that while I would prefer to vote in the primary for a candidate that does not take APAC money, I do not believe that taking APAC money or taking corporate money or billionaire money, whatever, I do not believe that that is disqualifying. And so if they end up winning the primary in spite of my best efforts, they still have my vote in the general, because a Democrat who does that is going to be better than a Republican that does that. That's number one. Number two is APAC does not want you to vote for Democrats, so they would prefer that you vote for Republicans. Ergo, they're going to give money to both sides so they can have control, so they can have influence over both sides. And three, if you are looking for the politicians that stand up to APAC and Netanyahu, then they're all in the Democratic Party. They're all in the Democratic Party. So better is better and worse is worse. Kay Yeti, thank you so much for helping me reach my third gift goal of the day. And since we are over time, we are way over time. I'm just cooking. I'm having so much fun. We got great numbers today and great questions and great comments. We're going right to High Bears as we head out. All right, let me see if there's anything that I should do. Jojo says, what do you think about Thomas Sankara? I think I just learned about him, actually. And, some good stuff, some bad stuff. I don't think you should throw people in jail without a trial, but some great left-wing policies there, if I'm remembering correctly who that person is. All right, K Yeti says, you're welcome, making up for lost time. I'm currently deployed. Oh shit, where are you, K Yeti? Can you say? Is it legal for you to say? Is it dangerous for you to say? Thank you for your service. Barry Mark says, what's your political position? I'm a progressive Democrat. Okay. Troy Groiper says, is it morally wrong for white people to organize based on their ethnicity if Jews can do the same? Ooh, boy, I don't love you saying Jews like that, Troy Groiper. And hold on a second. I appreciate that you acknowledge that actually happens. I don't know that that actually happens, Troy Groiper. I want to be clear about this, that I was addressing you saying that that was happening and not a reality that I know that that is happening. And I'm pretty confident that white people do organize based on their ethnicity, Yeah, this is, I gotta be honest, Toy Gripper, I am not fully prepared to make this argument because I don't really know what you're talking about. I don't know if these organizations exist, what they're doing and what they're not doing. There are groups of white people that organize based on their ethnicity for whatever purpose, The KKK famously did that shit. Yeah, I don't know, Toy Groiper. Yeah, Toy Groiper, I am happy that you are here, but I'm pretty confident that you are getting misinformation. And so please stick around and continue asking questions. But yeah, just gotta let you know that I believe that a lot of the things you're saying are inaccurate and potentially harmful. So just put that in your noodle. Put that in your noodle. Let's get into a dialogue here. And to all of my what do you call it? To all of my dope ass regulars like Average Joe and John Abbott, who are big on the fact checks, I would love it if we could help Toy Groiper out here without being a dick. I'm not saying that anybody has been a dick to Toy Groiper yet. I'm just saying going forward, let's not be a dick to Toy Groiper. Okay, let's see here. Michael Anthony says, I really appreciate that as much as you know. You always acknowledge if you don't know something. I appreciate you, Michael. Frank says, do you believe that Jeremy Corbyn was subject to a smear campaign in the guise of anti-Semitism? I don't know enough about that, so sorry, Frank. All right, Makisi Kurisu says, should the Russian government change their policies on anime girl? Did you change your fucking name so you could sneak in your fucking anime girl pillows? Are you the same guy, Makise Kurisu? Are you the same guy? I forget what your old name was. Was it like Dyson or something? Tell me you're the same guy. You'll make my fucking Friday. K8 says, no, sir, but Semper Fi, please continue to educate and advocate. Dason, you son of a bitch. All right. The game is afoot. The game is hot, man. We are there. K Yeti, not sure if my comments are coming through. Yeah, I just get a lot of comments, so I got to kind of like, jump back and forth. So I definitely miss some things. But I appreciate you being here, Katie. Thank you so much for your service. All right, everybody, I'm going to start wrapping things up. Get in your final questions. If you want to support the show financially, you can. You can send. Oh, I just got reported for harassment and bullying. That's awfully strange. That is awfully strange. How the fuck did that happen? Would whoever said that I did that, please stand up and let me know so I can not do any harassment and bullying going forwards. You know, I gotta let you know what this feels like is I'm just a left-wing person and you're trying to shut me up. You know. Wait, Bella, did you report me because I curse, Bella? Yeah, I don't know. Seems kind of shitty for the First Amendment crowd. Anyways, as I was saying, if you want to support the show financially, you can. You can send gifts on TikTok. You can send bits on Twitch. You can be a subscriber on Twitch. You can be a super fan on TikTok. If you have Amazon Prime, you can subscribe to my Twitch for free. Costs you $0, helps me out a ton. So I would really appreciate you doing that. You can also join my Patreon for as little as $1 a month, although there is a very fun incentive at $10. If you have the money, you know, you can enjoy some very fun incentives there. If there are any questions that I was not able to get to on the live stream today, please reach out to me. I want to be a resource for you all to be more involved and more informed about politics. So any way that I can do that, use me and abuse me. Use me until I am all used up. DMs are open. You can hit me up that way. You can email me through my website. Link is in the bio. You could also hit me via my Discord channel. Link is also in the bio. And the Discord is great. There's a great community there. There's recommendations for books and podcasts. And also, there's civic information there. Like, if you want to be involved in helping with all this shit that's going on right now, you should go to the Discord because there's information there. And if you desperately want to help but you don't know how, you can also just message me and I will figure it out. I will figure out what fits into your life. I will figure out what you can do based on where you live, how much time you have, if you want to donate money, if you don't want to donate money, whatever. Like, we need more people doing the work. We need more people talking to people in real life off of the internet. We need more good people doing this. That is the only way that we get out of this. So do the work. If you need help figuring out what the work is or what work you can do, let me know and I will help. That's what I want. That's all I want to do. You know, I would stop doing this live stream entirely if I just had messages every day from people asking me to help them get volunteer and places to donate and shit like that. So yeah, let's do this, guys. Let's put this through. Okay, Mia, I think that was a pretty good block there. Let's see here. Let's scrolling up. K80 says, "Did JD Vance really downplay Watergate, or was that AI?" I think that's real, but I need to double check. Because I didn't dig into that headline, and I've been tricked before, so I need to make sure that I'm real on that. But it really does seem like the sort of thing that he would do. Some dude says, "How do you keep your bias in check when looking for facts?" Excellent question, some dude. So the thing that you want to do is have multiple sources. You want to make sure that you're getting the same information from different avenues to avoid any kind of bias. Every once in a while, you should do a gut check. Like, am I believing something that is inaccurate just because it confirms my priors? And, you know, recognize where you could potentially be being misled. Like, remember, oh shit, did I hear this from a reputable source, or am I just repeating some shit that I saw on YouTube Shorts or TikTok or whatever? But it's a practice, you know. This is one of my favorite things. Like, you know, when I was a younger man, I did a little bit of yoga, and they always call it like a practice. Like, you just do it every day, you know. And when you talk to people who knew, like, you know, Mr. Roger, you know, from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, and how he was always like trying to be like a good and kind person, and his wife saying, like, you know, yeah, he works at it. He's not always that way, but if he seems like he's really good at that now, it's because he works at it. It's a practice, and part of the practice is, you know, every once in a while doing a little check and making sure that you're not, you know, believing misinformation, making sure that you are, you know, what do you call it? Confronting your prior beliefs. So yeah, you know, it's just the process of trying to be better at this every single day. All right, Farouk says, do you support free healthcare? Yes, but let's not call it free healthcare. Let's call it universal healthcare. Because if we call it free healthcare, then people who are against free healthcare will say, it's not free, you're paying for it with raised taxes, and they think that's going to be like an own on us. And that could potentially push people away. And then we have to kind of explain, like, we know that we raise taxes to pay for universal health care, but the extra money that you pay in your taxes to pay for that is less than you are currently paying for insurance. Okay, let's see here. Who is John Galt? Says, do you believe that there is an ongoing genocide in the U.S.? I guess I'm interested in who you believe is the subject of that genocide, John Galt, because I'm sure an argument could be made that certain marginalized groups are kind of, being targeted in a way that you are potentially suggesting. I don't know. Mali Tov Cocktails, universal healthcare is just healthcare for all with a different name. Yeah, I'm just saying we shouldn't call it free healthcare because it's a little inaccurate to call it free healthcare. Okay, Rena, I didn't see the comment that you just pinned. Is there any way you can pin it again? Okay. And Toy Groiper, please do not say things like white people are the victims of a genocide in America, because that is just massively untrue. So Toy Groiper, what right now you are getting into a territory where I might need to block you. Because if you try to convince, if you're out there saying that there's a white genocide right now happening in America, like, that is pretty seriously wrong, inaccurate, and unproductive. So make sure that you are asking more questions than making statements if you want to continue being a part of this live stream. Toy Groiper. Toy Groiper says, universal healthcare is amazing, and I'd be for it if the left agrees on stronger immigration laws. Why do you need to compromise on universal healthcare? If it's going to help everybody, Toy, why would you need to then hold hostage Americans who need healthcare in order to get stronger? Oh, no, actually, sorry, you cleared that up in your second part. It is not possible without strong immigration laws. I gotta disagree. I think the money's there, Toy Groiper. I think the money is there. And I think that rich people have convinced you that we cannot have universal health care unless we get rid of immigrants, is a bummer. But the money is there. We could give universal health care to everybody in this country, including people that are trying to become citizens. Okay, who is John Galt? Says, for the record, I don't believe that there is an ongoing genocide. I just wanted to know what you think. What? Yeah, no, John Galt. I would not claim that there was an ongoing genocide in America. But, if you're trying to, if somebody says that the way that we are harming marginalized communities in America is similar to a genocide, I'm open to that argument. And I do think that it is an unequivocal fact that marginalized people are being oppressed, and in some cases murdered by people in power. Okay, who is John Galt? Says, isn't it true that Scandinavian countries actually have some pretty strict immigration laws? They do, yes, but I do not believe that is the only way in which that can work. Okay, Molotov Cocktail says, I'd be down if we can ban things that compound the issues, like allowing soda and junk food on SNAP. It's not good stewardship to allow harm and then increase the burden on taxpayers by providing those same people who receive SNAP free healthcare. Molotov Cocktail, I would agree with you. I would agree that we should be encouraging people to use their SNAP benefits for more healthy and substantive foods. But some people live in food deserts, and that's the only food that is available to them. And healthy food tends to be a lot more expensive also, and SNAP benefits are not all that substantive. So sometimes that's the only way that they can feed their family. And also, I should mention this, it sucks being poor. And so if you're spending almost all of your SNAP benefits on, broccoli and, white chicken breasts, I think you should get a little treat every now and again. And so if you want to get some Hostess fucking donuts just to take a little bit of the edge off of how much it fucking sucks to be impoverished, I say fucking go for it. It doesn't bother me if poor people want to use my taxpayer dollars on a sweet treat every now and again, because the amount of money that it takes from me is pennies, if anything. And the amount of money it would take to stop them from doing that is more. So if it's going to cost me more to stop them from getting a sweet treat than it actually would cost me to allow them to get a sweet treat, I say fucking let them get a sweet treat. Who gives a shit? Okay, Molly Tov says, then prove to me a majority of Americans will choose a can of tuna over a donut. It bothers me because it's bad stewardship and allowing harm. Yeah, I mean, I definitely think education is a part of that Molly Tov cocktail, but I, for the same reason that I am not going to say that the majority of Americans aren't choosing a donut over a can of tuna, I am also not going to say that they don't want to eat healthy and are just being misinformed about what is healthy, or they don't have any other food available to them in where they live, because food deserts do exist. All right, but we got an interesting dialogue happening on the Twitch and the YouTube. Very exciting. So yeah, we're almost at 90 minutes. I usually don't go this long. Farouk says, what do you think about the military-industrial complex? I'm against it. Water is Calming says, why do corporations pay poorly at the expense of local communities to be livable? Because they're greedy. Water is Calming. They are greedy, and they view human beings as disposable resources. They don't give a shit about. They want to work us all to death. It's the fucking Animal Farm shit, you know? Okay. My wife just told me I need to wrap things up. All right, everybody. Do the work. Be good to each other. You don't have to be addicted. Do the work. Be good to yourselves. Self-care is part of the work. I will see you guys on Monday. Same bat time, same bat channel. Have a great weekend, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye. Goodbye.